Hey everybody, welcome to USA Hockey Arena in Plymouth, Michigan. It's the home of USA Hockey's National Team Development Program. We're going to spend a few quality moments with the head coach of this year's NTDP U17s, the 2008 group, of course, Nick Fohr. Nick, I know you're busy. Thanks for your time.
Absolutely.
A very ambitious road schedule for your team to start off, 14 of 16 on the road. Your team has played in New Mexico, you played in Minnesota, Johnstown, Pennsylvania. Now you're going through the gauntlet of USHL teams. Soon you're going to be playing in Canada. So with all that, how do you like your team so far?
You know, it's been, we've had a lot of time to get to know each other, which has been good. Spent a lot of time at airports and hotels and on the road doing different things. So, you know, it's been a really fun group to get to know. You know, that's kind of the fun of this job a little bit, is just getting to know the personalities of the team. And so we've had lots of time to start to identify personalities and start to develop those relationships that are so important with what we do here.
So many of these guys have played with elite programs. They've done a certain amount of traveling, but it's got to be kind of different when you're going to New Mexico 1 week, Johnstown, Pennsylvania another week. How has the adjustment been made for these guys?
You know, they've done a good job because the grind's been hard, right?
Yeah.
Like New Mexico, a lot of people don't realize we were up in the mountains. We were at 6,000 feet where we were playing. So just dealing with the altitude changes and things like that. So the guys have done a really good job with maintaining and managing their energy stores as much as we can. And we've been able to talk about those types of things. But they've done a really good job. They've worked really hard. You know, they've been trying to do the things we're asking as coaches. And at this point, that's all we can ask.
And part of it is managing time away from the rink, the schooling, and they're here today, this morning, in their schooling, weight room work, and that can be a tough adjustment for some of these guys. How do you see it?
Yeah, it can be, you know, because a lot of these, you know, we utilize an online school program here, and you know, for some of these kids, it's the first time they've done it. For some of them, that's all they've ever done, right? So, but it allows us the flexibility and freedom to be able to travel like we've had to this year and be able to maintain their academic work. And, you know, so we've had to have study halls on the road. We were in Sioux City, Iowa last week, and we took over the lobby of the hotel because our rooms weren't ready and we didn't have a meeting room space, and we just took over the entire lobby, and we had a study hall right in the middle of the lobby for about an hour and a half. So we find ways to do the things we need to make sure that they're keeping up with their academic work, and it's sometimes it's challenging, but we find ways to get it done.
Some folks might think this is a local team, the NTDP, but I'm looking at your roster, guys from Minnesota, Michigan, traditional hockey powers, but also guys from California, Oregon, Texas, Iowa, and in a short period of time, they have to kind of assimilate each other and become a team. How does that work for you?
Yeah, I think, you know, that's been the beauty of being on the road, right? Like it's been harder on them, or it's been harder on their bodies. It's been harder on us coaches, frankly, as well, being as gone as much as we have. But it's allowed them that time to get to know each other, and allowed them that time to develop relationships amongst each other and get to know each other really well. And so that the time on the road, although it's been a little bit extensive at times so far this year, it has allowed us some really good team building and some opportunities for the kids to really get to know each other well.
Your team's currently 6-4 with all these road games. If you were to give the fans an idea of what your team's like, what would that be?
You know, it's been an interesting group so far. They've been really resilient and they've been opportunistic. So for us, we're still trying to get to know them a little bit. We're still trying to develop an identity as a team and what we're going to look like completely. But when we've played our best hockey, we're utilizing a lot of the things that a lot of our teams in the past have, right? Kind of our USA Hockey identity stuff where we're playing smart, fast, and hard. And the guys have been competing hard, and they've taken away time and space from the other team, and they've been opportunistic and scored when they get some opportunities. So it's been a fun team to get to know. We're still trying to identify and develop, you know, that true identity, and that will come with time.
One of the things I've noticed in knowing you and the other coaches, you definitely scout other teams, you do a lot of video work, but one of the things you've often said, let's play to our identity, let's not worry so much about the other team. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, that's a bit of the process of what we do here is we've got to develop an identity as a team and what our strengths are going to be as a team, and those are the things that we focus on. And we will look at our opponents, and we do give the players, you know, some different things from a game to game basis to help us be more successful from night to night. But the last thing that we talk about and the last thing we spend time on is being good at what we're good at. And so we really try to focus on those things. And like I said this early in the year with the 17 team, we're still trying to figure out what those things are. But we're getting there little by little.
One of the things I noticed, you have 4 players who had older brothers that have played for the NTDP, and I'm going to mention Sammy Nelson, Abe Barnett, Victor Plant, Logan Stewart. Does that help, or how does that dynamic work?
I think it does help, actually. Those kids have a little bit better understanding of what to expect, and it gives them some frame of reference that they can then share with their teammates. So I think having a little bit of familiarity there and knowing what's coming can help those guys for sure. And I think it depends on the brother. Some of those brothers are better at sharing information with the others, and some of them like to hold it back so that the others can experience exactly what they did. So, but it's been good, and having that experience, and it's been good to have.
Another dynamic we see every year, players who have been in the family business, their dads are in the NHL, and I'm thinking specifically of Victor Plant and Wyatt Cullen. Their dads played in the NHL.
Yep.
The dynamic for me as a broadcaster, the fathers will say, "Don't ever mention me on the air." And I say, I have to tell a story.
Yeah.
But what is your dynamic working with those NHL fathers?
It's been really good. Each guy's different, as you can imagine. Through the years of dealing with all sorts of different NHL parents, whether it's Keith Tkachuk or whether it's Matt Cullen, they're all their own person, and developing those relationships from a coach to a parent thing is important, whether they're an NHL dad or not. But they're all they've all been great. They've all been different. It's been really nice to get to know these guys. Matt and I actually grew up playing against each other back home. He played for Moorhead Orange, and I was at Grand Forks North, and we went back and forth as young kids playing back in the day. And so known him for a long time, but never really got to know him at all. Like never really communicated with him at all. So it's been good to get to know him and develop that relationship. But they're each individually different for sure.
You have some new coaches working with you, Kevin Porter and Conor Allen. Kind of different backgrounds.
Yeah.
Kevin is a veteran. He's been played at Michigan, played here, I believe.
Yep.
Won a Hobie Baker, played a certain amount of time in the NHL, coached in the American Hockey League.
Yeah.
And he's back. How's that dynamic working with the guy they call Port?
Yeah, that's been great. It's he's got such experience as a player, right? And he remembers what it was like to come through this program and live the day-to-day that he had to live here as a player. And he can add that knowledge to our kids and kind of give them some history at times. And so that's been great. And he's been coaching in the American League after his long NHL playing career, which also included a Stanley Cup with the Pittsburgh Penguins. So it's been really good to have him and that experience. And he's done a really good job of relating with our players. And it's the first time he's worked with younger kids. He's worked at the pro level. That's the only place that he's coached before. So it's been a little bit of an adjustment for him, but he's starting to figure it out and he's enjoying it.
You have a younger assistant coach, Conor Allen, comes out of Chicago, and if I'm not mistaken, Chicago Mission. So he knows this age group pretty well. How's Conor been for you?
Conor's been great. It's funny, I didn't know Conor from anybody before I went through the process this summer trying to find somebody to hire, and I started looking through resumes, and all of a sudden I saw my college roommate as a reference on one, and it was Conor's, and so there was a connection there. But Conor's done a really good job. He's got a background as a defenseman, and so he's been working with our defensemen and helping them with some different things, and he's a little bit younger, a little bit greener from the coaching side of things, but he relates really, really well and does a really good job of developing those relationships with the players. He spends more time with them than any of us do, and he's done a really good job of bringing them along.
One of the things coming up for your age group, the World U17 Hockey Challenge, again, travel but not so bad, just over in Sarnia. Are you excited to see how your team and your age group competes against other countries?
Yeah, I am. I'm really excited to see what they can do. This team did participate, or this birth year I should say, did participate in the Youth Olympics last year, and they won the gold medal, which gives you some optimism leading into it. Now we've got a lot of different players than we're on that team. We went a different way with a lot of different players, and so I'm excited to see the rest of the countries, and what they can do and what their top players look like and how we match up. And those are always fun, exciting times, and that's always a fun, exciting tournament. It's entertaining hockey because there's mistakes made every shift, and games there are 9-6, and there's a lot of scoring, and partly because there's a lot of mistakes and partly because there's a lot of talent. And so it's always a really fun tournament.
I want to move on to the NTDP and the National Hockey League. One of the top players up for the 2025 draft is James Haggins, now at Boston College, played here for 2 years. You work with James Haggins. What do you like about him?
James he's just kind of a rink rat hockey player. He just really enjoys being at the rink and playing the game, and so he's really fun to work with because he's always engaged that way. And so I kind of give him a top billing and it's kind of some tough comparisons. When you go to watch him, you're going to see a guy that skates a lot like Jack Hughes, but makes plays and does some different things, kind of like Logan Cooley, which are both high-end draft picks, high-end NHL players, and that's a lot to live up to for a young kid, but he's capable of being that type of player.
Part of the NTDP, the drafts, and we've had 99 NTDP players taken in the first round of whatever particular draft. James Haggins will be number 100. I want to go to the other end of the spectrum. You also work with a guy by the name of Patrick Giles. Played here for 2 years, played about 3 or 4 years in college, signed with the Florida Panthers as a free agent. He's finally made the Panthers, so it's taken a long time for him. But what do you remember of Patrick Giles?
Patrick was always a big, strong kid, fun to work with, hard-nosed, had some talent and some ability there for sure. Kind of as a power forward type of guy, but you knew it was going to take him a little bit longer than some of these other guys, and that's normal. That's part of this. Not everybody's going to walk out of here and be an NHL All-Star in the next, the first 2-3 years out of the program. It's a hard process we go through here, and he had to take a little bit slower route, and he's made it. He didn't get drafted. He had to go the long way, but he was never deterred. He just kind of kept doing his thing, continued to do the things he needed to do to prep himself to make that next step and to be part of the NHL and be a productive part of the NHL. And he's just starting to see that. He's just got his first game the other night. Really excited for him. He's with a great organization, obviously. A hard lineup to crack right now, I'm sure. But he's got a bright future in front of him. Excited to see what happens for him.
A couple of other players I know you worked with, the O2 group, and I know you're really proud of guys like Jake Sanderson, Brock Faber, Matty Beniers. What do you remember from those guys?
Those guys were a lot of fun. That team had personality. That team was, it was Christmas time, and they get the gag gifts out for the coaches, which most teams aren't comfortable enough with us to do that. But those guys had that type of personality. So those guys were a lot of fun. They had energy and they competed really hard. They were a different team. The last couple of years we've been able to score a lot, and we're a highly productive team. That team didn't have a lot of scoring. Matty Beniers was a really good player on that team, but he was kind of young still and skinny, and he hadn't quite fully developed into an offensive player like he is. He was offensive then, but just not as dominant yet. He wasn't ready to be as dominant yet. So we had to defend a lot, and we had to depend on guys like Jake Sanderson and Brock Faber a lot on the back end, and Drew Comesso and net. We had to win hockey games 2-1 and 3-2 with that group versus trying to win games 6-5. So it was a little different approach as coaches, which again, like I said, and like I've said for years around here, that's kind of the fun of the job. Each group's different. Each group has its own personalities and their strengths and their weaknesses, and it allows you to kind of coach differently from year to year.
And one of the last thing for you, one of the cool things we see in the summertime, you see a Jake Sanderson coming back, not just saying hello to Nick Fohr, although that's part of it, working downstairs at the GVN offices, and all of these guys coming back. That's great to see.
It is great to see, and the guys downstairs, Brian Gallivan, his whole staff down in the gym. You walk through that gym in the morning in the summer times, and it's you can put an NHL All-Star team together pretty quick with the guys that are down there, from Dylan Larkin to, like you said, Jake Sanderson, Thatcher Demko. There's a lot of different guys that are in and out of this building on a daily basis, and it's a lot of fun to see, and it was something that we had as a vision for USA Hockey when we bought this building, that we wanted to make this a destination spot and a place for pros to come and train in the summertime. We've got everything right here for them to do it, and Brian and his staff has made that possible, and they do a really good job down there. And it's kind of that next step for us, and we're happy that we've been able to take that, and hopefully that we're able to maintain that here in the future.
Nick Fohr, thanks for your time. We'll talk again.
Absolutely.